have several Hans, a total of 4 Han Solo leaders. And interestingly enough, 3 of them are Han Solo Audacious Smuggler, and we have only 1 Han 2 ECL this time around, but that's our number 1 seed. You can see Kylo Datavault is here in the 2nd seed. So you've got Sean and James Ophir, which is Woo on Cad Bane Tarkintown. That is our 3rd seed right now. We've got John Morris in 4th with Han 1 Yellow, which we talked about a little bit. We've got 2 Han 1 Yellow die in 7th on Han 1 Green, a classic. And then we've got 8th seed. We're going to have an Emperor Palpatine Yellow. Love to see that. I'm Josh Snyder. Tower number 9 is alongside with me, and we are excited to bring the top cut action and see who will become a planetary, excuse me, not a planetary, a sector qualifier champion in Mesa.
Yeah, and earlier there were a lot of Hans in that top 8. I think at one point, Grumpy was describing a situation where 7 Hans were in the top 8. And while we have had some strong successes from Han, it looks like some other leaders have battled their way into that top 8 now that we're at the cut. I think we have a total of 4 Hans, 2 Cads, 1 Kylo, and 1 Palpatine, with 3 of the Han decks being Han 2 and 1 of them being Han 1.
Well, we are getting ready for the feature match of the quarterfinals. Jay Fire versus John Yellow. Both of these players repping Han 1 double cunning. This should be interesting, Tower. We're going to see a mirror match
Oh
here to
yeah, 2
start
yeah, that's right. There's
the
2
top
Han
8.
1s and they are playing each other. Interesting scenario. Player
That's what we
named
were
John Yellow playing Han Yellow.
talking about, Tower. So interesting, the great success that we saw Han 1 Yellow have over this weekend. 2 of them in the top cut. Now, again, only one of them can advance, but really interesting to see the Han 1 Yellows rise up here in Mesa. I'm pretty sure in response to these aggressive strategies, the Han 2 ECL being at the top of the meta, knowing that these Tarkintown decks would rise up to try and counter the Han 2 decks. And I think it's been a nice spot in the meta now in terms of what we've seen in Mesa for these Han 1 double cunning decks.
Yeah. Well, the players are getting set up here, and everyone in this top cut has already qualified for the Galactic Championships, but they are playing for both additional prizes that go to those with higher standings and also for those leaderboard points.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Both of these players have secured 100 points. You get 100 points for making the top 8 of a sector qualifier, which guarantees a spot in the main event of the Galactic Championship. But if you advance on to the top 4, that point total goes up to 150. And now we're starting to add some points to the leaderboard, and we've talked about it a little bit throughout the weekend. The top 32 players on the leaderboard will have their travel expenses covered to the Galactic Championship. So these points certainly do matter, and they're also playing for some other great prizes as well as some uncut sheets, some promos, also that coveted champion playmat as well.
Yeah, so definitely some cool prizes. The invite has already been achieved, but there's no reason to stop playing. There's a bunch of other cool stuff at stake as well. J Fire versus John Yellow. Han 1 Yellow mirror match about to get underway.
John Yellow will be able to start with the initiative here in this quarterfinal feature match. The question for me is going to come down to, are these players able to draw cunning? We know that cunning, arguably the most powerful card in these double cunning aspect decks. And we'll see which of these two players can find those pieces at the right time because cunning can just be such a massive tempo swing.
That's right, Josh. Cunning is one of the best cards in the game. Has been ever since it came out, and it's really key to a double Cunning's deck's success. So being able to play those copies of Cunning could be pretty important for both of our Han yellow players here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking a look here at the two decks. Just curious, how similar are they in terms of their composition? One thing that we are certainly going to find in both of these decks is going to be 3 copies of Cunning and 3 copies of Faith in Your Friends, the new event out of Secrets of Power that fits very well into these double Cunning aspect decks where it's much easier to fulfill the disclose requirement. Faith in Your Friends, that 2-cost event, you get to replace it automatically. You search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card and draw it. And then if you can disclose 3 Cunning and 2 Heroism aspect icons, you can create 2 spy tokens. So most of the time in these double Cunning decks, you will be able to fulfill that requirement. So it's a great opening play in these decks.
Yeah. Earlier we did see a game yesterday where someone played Faith in Your Friends and wasn't able to disclose. Definitely not where you want to be with that one. The draw can be nice. I mean, maybe you find a copy of Cunning and it ends up being really relevant later on. But you really are hoping to be able to use your disclose with that one and generate those spy tokens to put on some nice early pressure.
Absolutely. Again, John Yellow will start with the initiative here in this opening game of our quarterfinal feature match. A deck that was so good in Shadows of Galaxy meta and into the Twilight of the Republic meta. These Han 1 yellow decks were extremely powerful. That was back in the days, Tower, when we had DJ and the nasty stealing of resources and defeating those stolen resources off of the Han ability.
Yeah, DJ was nasty with the Tech DJ combo in like a Han green deck, but it was the double yellow Han that really took DJ to the next level by being much more able to play him for his smuggle cost normally. So you could see things like the classic Han 567 into a DJ.
Well, here are the deck lists on the screen for us here for Jay Fire and John Yellow. We see that John Yellow, the first thing that just jumps right out to me, a little bit heavier space presence for John Yellow, including that Sanctioner shuttle. The big difference there in the space arena. Both decks, of course, we talked about Cunning and Faith in Your Friends. Can't miss those.
Sanctioner Shuttle, maybe the number one capture card these days. I don't say that 100% for sure, but definitely one that's seen a lot of play and fits very well into the Pilot Vader Cunning decks that have been popular on and off as a space aggro composition.
John Yellow, a player that has used this deck quite a bit. He's been on Han 1 for quite some time. Even has the Millennium Falcon hand token there as we get this first game underway. The L337 coming out for John Yellow, and it is the Faith in Your Friends for Jay Fire. Able to draw a card here and getting the disclose to create 2 spy tokens. So we
Yeah.
see the early Faith in Your
Now
Friends.
L3 could in theory clear out those spies, but will take multiple actions to do so and won't be available to attack the base if her attacks are directed towards the spies instead.
John Yellow with the initiative. As you mentioned, those spies pretty easy pickings for L337. The spies have no power when they are defending. So L3 taking out one of the spies, no damage back, keeping the shield token. We see the Millennium Falcon get out and push. The jump to light speed version of Falcon coming out for J-Fire, and it is the 3-cost 3-5 liberated slaves for John Yellow, and the Bothan network spy token going to swing into John Yellow's base for 2 here and deal the opening damage of game 1. John Yellow still has the initiative and multiple actions, but job has been completed. L337 has successfully answered the spy tokens that J-Fire was able to create during the opening action phase of the game. John Yellow doing a good job at controlling the ground arena early.
Yep. The spies got a little damage in, but with no power on the defense, L3 was able to clear out the spies without even taking the loss of that shield token.
For the first time in game 1, we will see the Han Solo action ability as J-Fire puts a card from his hand, not puts a whole hand, puts a card from his hand into play as a resource and readies it. Now we're going to see Kira come out for John Yellow, revealing J-Fire's hand. We see we've got another Millennium Falcon there, and it looks like Kira is going to name Millennium Falcon. So while Kira is in play, Millennium Falcon will cost an additional 3 resources for J-Fire to play, but we saw the Han Solo, the pilot Han, being put onto Millennium Falcon, get out and push. So that's going to be a swing of 6. 8 damage on John Yellow's base as he responds with 3 of his own from the liberated slaves.
Yeah, and calling Millennium Falcon is especially relevant here because there are probably multiple versions of the Millennium Falcon in the deck. Actually, I don't know for sure. We'd have to check the deck list again. But historically, we've seen the Fast Falcon, we've seen the Pilot Falcon, and we've seen Lando's Falcon all seen competitive play.
J-Fire bringing out Bodhi Rook was able to look at John Yellow's hand, could discard a non-unit card, but didn't find one. So Bodhi Rook's when played ability essentially just fizzling here as John Yellow once again has the initiative. 8 damage on John's base, 3 damage on J-Fire's base.
Yeah, a classic tactic against this deck would be to try to change your resource pattern so that you would not have non-unit cards in your hand for Bodhi Rook to take, because then your opponent might play Bodhi miss and be in a spot where they had just made a very inefficient move.
Don't forget, J-Fire did have to defeat a resource, one of his resources at the start of the action phase from using that Han action ability. That's one of the things. You get the extra ready resource for this current round, but you have to defeat one of your resources at the start of the next action phase. But we're going to see both players using the Han action ability. John Yellow deploying his Han leader first as Bodhi Rook gets into John Yellow's base for 311 damage on Mos Eisley.
11 damage on Mos Eisley. 3 damage on Jabba's palace.
Yellow with the next action to take 6 ready resources, a massive ground arena. What is the play? It's going to be the Sanctioner Shuttle. What a play from John Yellow. The coordinate is turned on. He will capture an enemy non-leader unit that costs 3 or less. Millennium Falcon that was piloted by Han, captured by the shuttle, cleaning out the big threat in the space arena. And look at this hotshot blaster onto John Yellow's leader unit to instantly attack and defeat J-Fire's leader Han when it was deployed. Now we are going to see the Millennium Falcon being smuggled out. That's Lando's pride. 6 cost 5/5. Won't have ambush because it was smuggled. But John Yellow with the opening in the ground arena coming through for some damage. It's 8 damage on J-Fire's Jabba's Palace.
Yeah, so was Falcon not named by Kira then, I think? We were discussing that possibility.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I thought it was the Falcon. I thought he pointed to the Falcon. We'll have to get official confirmation from Claire on that.
Yeah, because the Kira ability should apply to all versions of the Falcon, as we were discussing. So if Falcon was named, then that Lando's Falcon would have it applied.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I think we're stopping right now. Yep, that is an excellent point, Tower. And it looks like we're going to pause here in the game action because Kira did call Millennium Falcon. That is what we're discussing. And as you said, it would cost 3 additional resources. So that Millennium Falcon, Lando's Pride, would cost an additional 3. We'll see where we go from here. But one thing to note, John Yellow has done a fantastic job of controlling the early board. As strong as faith in your friends is, and those 2 spy tokens are nice, but when you're staring down a shielded fringe droid L337, it becomes a bit tough, and L337 had easy work to do there, taking care of the spies, and it's just been constant pressure in the ground arena. The Sanctioner shuttle, really effective whenever you're able to turn on the coordinate and answering that Millennium Falcon get out and push. So John has really had great answers to everything that Jay Fires wanted to do thus far in game 1.
I think you're right about that, Josh, and we'll see what happens here. We may have misunderstood exactly what was going on, but hopefully we'll get an answer soon.
Yep, we are resolving things now. Millennium Falcon was the call. The judge is there and going to work through this particular situation while we've got a little bit of a break in the action. Jay Fire, and hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name properly. This is Julian Deval, part of Team Babu Freaks from Portland, Oregon. Has 25 total points on the leaderboard, needs 75 to qualify for the Galactic Championship, and he has done that this weekend in Mesa, Arizona, as he's locked up an additional at least 100 points. We'll put Julian up to 125 points, and Jay Fire, or Julian, was also able to get a top 16 finish at Beatle, the second Beatle that took place in November, and also has one planetary qualifier win back in set 4. And Tower, J Fire says, I'm a cunning addict. And maybe that
A
is
cunning
shown in his
addict.
deck choice.
Well, cunning, not only a strong aspect, but also a very strong card. It'll be interesting to see whether cunning the card ends up playing a big role in this matchup, but it very much could. Probably one of the strongest cards in both of these decks. And it sounds like the Falcon play there was illegal thanks to Kira, and they are figuring out how this is going to be resolved with a judge present at the table.
Now, John Yellow is someone we have seen at the streaming table already on day 1 of our sector qualifier. John Yellow, this is John Morris coming in from Owensboro, Kentucky. Part of the Moisture Farmers, has 150 points coming into this weekend. He's going to walk out of this convention center with at least 250 points. He's already got one top 8 finish at the Richmond sector qualifier, so add Mesa, Arizona as his second top 8 appearance in a sector qualifier, and John Yellow has multiple PQ wins and top 8 finishes, so both of these players very familiar with this stage. Looks like the
Yeah,
judge.
it could end up being higher than a top 8 finish, depending on how this game is going to go.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One of these players will advance on, secure an additional 50 points on the leaderboard. Some extra great prizing as well as we just continue to work through the judge call here. The Millennium Falcon, of course, could not be played, so that is something that does appear that it'll have to go back into the resources. Just waiting on the confirmation, but what a weekend it's been, Tower. It's been so much fun. We've had so many good matches on stream. Again, thank you so much to first off Tim and Claire for working so hard to bring us this stream and traveling across the country to set up and provide a great stream for the community. And big thank you to FFG and Jack for working so hard to bring us these great major events and helping making the streams possible as well. Now we are getting word here. The judge's call, shuffle the resources and put one back on top of the deck. So that is what we are working through. Again, big shout out to Metal Fab, our sponsor of this stream. Check Metal Fab out. They make some amazing looking tokens and dice and game pieces. These McClunky token initiative tokens that have been featured throughout the stream this weekend. They are giving some of those away. You can check out the Discord link in the description of the stream. Make sure you sign up for that giveaway as it will end tonight. That giveaway will end at 8:50 Eastern time, so make sure you're signed up before then. Got about 5 hours left to get involved in the giveaway, but we are going to resume play. L337 will be smuggled in for J Fire instead of that Millennium Falcon Lando's Pride, and John Yellow will just claim the initiative, and we will move on to the next action phase as they go through the regroup phase here. Now, keep in mind, John did have to defeat a couple resources after using the Han action ability and attacking with Han. Whenever you attack with that Han leader unit, you put the top card of your deck into play as a resource and ready it.
Tough situation there for Jay Fire. There was another play that could be made instead of the illegal Lando's Falcon play, but bringing out L3 from Smuggle is an extremely disappointing thing to have as your only play on the 6 resource turn. John Yellow very far ahead at this phase.
You are absolutely right, Tower. John Yellow able to get in for 6 with the Han leader unit, L337, taking care of the liberated slaves, but Kira gets in for 3 as well. It's 17 damage up to 19 with an attack from L337 as J Fire plays his own copy of liberated slaves. And once again, J Fire was going to play the Millennium Falcon, but we can't play the Falcon. That Kira, that darn Kira Tower, really messing up J Fire's plans here in this first game.
Yeah, Kira, we said it when the Kira chose the Falcon. There are a lot of different Falcons that Kira can block, and seems to have proven to be an insurmountable obstacle for J Fire, who scoops it up. John Yellow winning game 1.
What a first game for John Yellow. Really a compelling victory in that first game, and Kira doing some great work showing the real disruption of that 4-cost unit, because in a matchup like this, when you have an opponent that is running multiple copies of a card with the same name as Millennium Falcon in this case, that disruption is vital. And we saw it play out, and it played out perfectly for John Yellow in game 1, as these players now will do a little bit of sideboarding. Now,
Yep.
just going and taking a look at the sideboard here, we've noted the very heavy space presence really for both of these decks. The Millennium Falcons in full swing in this matchup, and we do know that John does have an answer to some of those space units. He actually has Blue Ace in the sideboard. Could be an option here to maybe answer one of those Falcons with an ambush unit.
Good point.
Anything else for you that's standing out of the sideboard, Tower?
Not necessarily. We'll see what happens here. I think it might be tough mentally here for Jay Fire with having a very major setback from a judge call like that. Not usually what you want to see. Sometimes it can kind of tilt people, but J Fire, as you were saying earlier, has some real tournament experience. May well be able to bounce back and come up for a comeback victory here in the first round of the top cut. If J Fire can win these next two games, the match that will be the match. John Yellow has the advantage, but has not yet secured victory.
And in fact, both of these players running Blue Ace in the sideboard. That is a new 4-cost 4/5 space unit from Secrets of Power. It has ambush, and on attack, you have to ready an enemy exhausted unit. But again, with the 4/5 stat line and ambush, it answers a Millennium Falcon beautifully because these 3-cost Millennium Falcons are just 3/4s. So we'll see if Blue Ace finds itself in the main deck for either of these players moving forward. Another thing to note for me is 2 copies of Bamboozle in J Fire's main deck. And for John Yellow, no Bamboozle main deck, but we do have 1 Bamboozle in the sideboard. And that's something that could be important here because Bamboozle could be a play like, for instance, if you don't have an answer to the Han once it deploys, if you in a pinch need to make sure that Han can't attack and get that extra resource, Bamboozle could be another option by exhausting.
Yeah.
Another
All
thing that
right.
stands out to me in John Yellow's deck, that Cicatro Vizago. I love that new 3-cost unit tower. What do you think about Cicatro?
I think I personally think we're going to see a big reevaluation of a bunch of cards coming up soon. I think that most likely the situation is going to change with respect to rotation. And I think it's going to cause a lot of cards to be reconsidered that may not necessarily have been as popular. However, there are also some cards that are kind of stars from the more recent sets that I think are going to be very likely to continue to see a bunch of play, regardless of what does or doesn't happen with the big reevaluation. So, when we're looking at some of the cards here that we've seen in Secrets of Power, I think that they have a very good chance of continuing to see play, almost regardless of what happens with the new set.
Speaking of the new set, A Lawless Time releases in March. Just a couple months from now, we get set 7 tower. Going to be an exciting time. The first time we've had rotation in Star Wars Unlimited. The meta will certainly look much, much different come March, the release of the new set. Make sure you are prepared to get your hands on some great new A Lawless Time product. And don't forget about Secrets of Power. Secrets of Power has really brought us some staples in the current meta. And moving
Yeah.
forward, some of these cards out of Secrets of Power may just get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, so I think when we look at cards like Karis Nemec or Mina Bonteri, I think it's extremely likely that these will continue to see play. Now, Staccato Vizago is an interesting one because this is a 3-cost 3/4, which is not necessarily the stat line that you most want with a lot of 3-cost 3/5s out there. But the on attack ability is so good that I think Vizago may well be in that category that's going to continue to see a bunch of play.
I think that's a really good point. Game 2 is underway. John Yellow was satisfied with his hand. We saw J Fire take the mulligan, and for the second straight game, it is a faith in your friends opening for J Fire as he searches the top 3 cards of his deck, draws 1. And now let's see if we get the disclose here. 3 cunning and 2 heroism aspect icons need to be revealed to get 2 spy tokens, and it looks like we might just get it. And hey, look at this. There's the blue ace. Blue ace has showed up here in game two for Jay Fire as he reveals a few cunning heroism units, getting the 2 spy tokens. And John Yellow says, "You have faith in your friends. I do as well."
Now, in these wars of the spy tokens, initiative matters quite a bit because a spy token can attack another spy token and clear it out while staying on the board and not taking any damage in return. So in this case, I think that Jay Fire, having been the first one to play Faith in Your Friends, does have something of an edge. However, we could easily see a situation where Jay Fire attacks and clears a spy token, and then John attacks and clears a spy token, and they're each left with one spy token plus whatever else gets played on that second turn.
Yeah, such a good point. The initiative really, really could matter. Jay Fire able to retain that initiative. Let's see how we open it up. It is going to be, look at this, spy for spy. One spy token on Jay Fire's side, cleaning up one of John's, and John just does the same. So far we have just mimicked one another here in game two. And it's going to be a second copy of Faith in Your Friends for Jay Fire. One thing that Jay Fire is not short of, and that is faith.
Lots of spies making their way onto the board in these first two turns. And as you were saying, we're seeing some, spy versus spy with those units trading with one another. Now Jfire has three spies on the board. It'd be very funny if John Yellow simply plays another Faith in Your Friends, but it isn't going to be that. We see instead Bodie Rook. And he does have a target. It's Cunning. Bodie Rook
Wow.
discarding Cunning. That is a high value play.
Absolutely. That was one of my big questions coming in. Who finds cunning? Who's able to make the most use of it? And John Yellow able to strip one copy from Jay Fire. John Yellow missed a real opportunity for a great meme play there of copying the Faith in Your Friends play, but nevertheless, he says, I'm going to go ahead and play this Bodie Rook. I'm going to strip the cunning and try to really put you in an awkward spot. Jay Fire has the initiative with 3 spy tokens.
Yeah, meme play is maybe one thing, Josh, but discarding your opponent's copy of Cunning feels a lot better to me. And Bodie Rook is going to be no slouch at fighting these spies either. Even though a 3-cost 3/3 isn't exactly the best stat line out there, it's still enough to mean that two spies would have to attack into him to remove him, and he would be defeating them on the way back.
Now we are going to see Kira playing her part come down for Jay Fire on turn 3 this game. We saw John Yellow play Kira on turn 3 in game 1. Calling Millennium Falcon, do we see Jay Fire return the favor here? Looks like it's going to be a call of cunning instead because John Yellow is holding one cunning in hand.
Yeah, both players messing with the opponent's ability to play Cunning, with John Yellow making a more definitive move with Bodie Rook, while Jay Fire brings out Kira to at least prevent it for the time being.
Spy tokens trading back and forth. Jay Fire is the one to have a spy token remaining. But we do see Rogue Operative hitting the ground arena for John Yellow. That 2-4 with Raid 2 and Saboteur. Classic Rebel unit from Spark of Rebellion. Jay Fire with the initiative, continuing to hold the initiative here in game 2. Let's see what he fires off to open things up during this action phase.
Yeah,
Gonna be that Han action ability. 6 resources now for Jay Fire, putting a card from hand into play as a resource and readying it.
Rogue Operative there, a somewhat scary unit, able to swing for 4. A little worse on the defense.
Jay Fire may be hinting that he'd love to get that 5, 6, 7 turn here so he could deploy Han and attack and go up to 7 resources. We see Bodie Rook attacking and defeating that final spy token. The spies have been sent away here in game two, and now the action back over to J-Fire. Kira will attack and defeat the Bodhi Rook unit, and it's going to be Rogue Operative taking out Kira, and will remain in play with just 1 HP remaining, but more importantly, John Yellow can play Cunning for just 4 resources once again.
Yep. And board getting a lot smaller than it was with the swarms of spies roaming around earlier. But I have a feeling there's going to be some more plays that may increase the size of these boards soon. J Fire successfully completing the 5-6-7 here. John flips Han. Oh, and there we see Hidden being granted to Han. That's actually very relevant in a situation like this one.
You're absolutely right, because J-Fire could have fired out one of those 7-cost ambush units and taken out Han before John Yellow could swing with it, but Tala Durith, that 3-cost 3/3 with Hidden, or giving each other friendly unit Hidden, plotting out when Han was deployed. We see the Millennium Falcon piece of junk being played by J-Fire. That enters play ready.
Yeah,
John
this
Yellow's
time
Han was able
J-Fire
to,
is successfully able to play a Falcon with no Kira to obstruct, and that Falcon could be highly relevant here.
John Yellow's Han leader unit taking out J-Fire's Han. We do see L337 coming out into the ground arena for J-Fire. But that Taladurith, a real sneaky play here for John that could be an impactful play, keeping that Han in play a bit longer, able to get use, able to take out J-Fire's leader as we see Millennium Falcon coming in. It's going to be the first base damage of game two, 3 damage on John Yellow's base. John
Yeah,
Yellow has
right
just
now,
claimed the initiative.
neither player with a really obvious advantage on board, to be honest. John still has his leader in play, but Han is seriously wounded and could be removed here by L3.
More
However, will
importantly,
have the opportunity to attack and put that temporary resource into play. And that does mean 7 resource plays are on the table there for John Yellow.
I think that is extremely, extremely critical in this situation. As he goes up to 7 resources, deals the first damage to J-Fire's base. The Millennium Falcon piece of junk continuing to bash into Moss Isley. 6 damage on John's Moss Isley as Taladurith will get in for 3. J-Fire's base now up to 7 damage in total.
L3 does indeed sacrifice that shield token to trade with Han, only to be killed by I believe that's Qui-Gon Jinn, the 7-cost ambush unit.
Qui-Gon Jinn coming in, ambushing, defeating that little droid. And now John's presented a big threat with 7 power and has a very relevant when defeated ability as well. We're going to see Plo Koon coming in. And Plo Koon, J-Fire was hoping to ambush into Qui-Gon Jinn, but Tala giving the other friendly units Hidden, so Qui-Gon Jinn cannot be attacked during this phase, so Plo Koon will just ambush and defeat Tala Durith. But once again, John Yellow has the initiative. It has that big 7 power unit in play.
All right. Definitely some ambushes here, some powerful units on the field. J-Fire also with the only space unit on the board, that Falcon swinging away. That
Falcon unimpeded
man,
right
I'm
now.
gonna I'm gonna be a bit sad to see the fast Falcon go. That's definitely a card that I've got a lot of use of in various aggro decks. but we'll see what new aggro options surface with set 7.
Yeah, that Millennium Falcon has really been at the pinnacle of space units so far in this game's history. We see 7 damage to J-Fire's base, doubling the damage total. 14 damage on J-Fire's Jabba's Palace as the Millennium Falcon once again flying down into Mos Eisley, dealing 3 damage, 9 damage on John Yellow's base. And now we see John Yellow playing the Cantina Bouncer,
Yep.
bouncing that
Can-
ground unit back to J-Fire's hand.
Cantina Bouncer, another real classic. This is a card that has been around since the start of the game in Spark of Rebellion and has remained highly relevant for double cunning decks throughout the game's early life.
Well, J-Fire feels like space is the place right now. Stolen AT hauler coming down. We see John having some more faith in his friends. Searching the top 3, we'll draw a card.
We could be looking at a space versus ground race, which I do believe would likely favor John Yellow, as ground tends to be a bit faster in those races, and additionally, there's already more damage on J Fire's base.
Yeah, right now, John not only ahead in the race in terms of the total damage counts, but has a lot more power in the ground arena than what J-Fire is showing in the space arena. We're going to see L337 coming out for J-Fire. But once again, John Yellow is able to claim the initiative, and Qui-Gon Jinn is still there with an opening. And we could see Qui-Gon Jinn get in for a total of 14 damage over the last couple of turns. Here it is. John Yellow not going to let that 7 power go to waste. Qui-Gon Jinn going into Jabba's Palace for 7. The negotiations really looking to become shorter and shorter here in game 2. 21 damage on that base.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, we're going to see just what is afoot here.
What's interesting to me, Tower, is Cunning has yet to be played. We see J-Fire playing that Bodhi Rook, stripping Cunning from John Yellow's hand. So once again, these players have done a good job of maneuvering their way around Cunning. But the Cantina Bouncer getting in for 3. It's 24 damage on J-Fire's base. One of the spy tokens taken out, but another spy is left in play. 26 damage on J-Fire's base.
Yeah. J Fire looking not so good here. Another Cantina Bouncer removing the stolen AT hauler. I don't see J Fire having much of a way out. I don't know.
Plo Koon's going to come out. This will have ambush and coordinate, so it will have raid 3. Going to take out the Qui-Gon here. So Qui-Gon Jinn and Plo Koon both defeated. The win defeated trigger. One of the ground units chosen on J-Fire's side.
Yeah.
Going back on top of the
Ambush
deck.
there. I don't know. The ambush there just doesn't really seem like it's enough. J Fire is very far behind here. There are 4 units that could potentially win the game with one attack.
At the end, when unfortunately it had no significance there. So Cunning did not make a big appearance in this match. Both players, like I said, doing a good job discarding it with the Bodhi Rooks. The Bodhi Rooks coming in clutch, trying to dodge the Cunning. But John Yellow doing a fantastic job and will see himself into the semifinals of a sector
Yeah.
qualifier, his second sector qualifier top 8 appearance.
Yeah, and we'll see just how far John Yellow can take it. Now the only Han 1 left in the event, I believe. So depending on how those other matches went, it'll be interesting. It could be an interesting final group of heroes as we move into the semifinals. At least one of those will be a Han Yellow.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In yellow, and McCravey has taken that match 2-1. So Palpatine has been eliminated. And McCravey is moving on with Han 2 ECL, the champion deck of the Tilburg sector last weekend. McCravey trying to let it be a repeat for Han 2 ECL.
Yeah. All right. I think we will hopefully soon have the results of those other matches in the top 8, and we will be moving on to the top 4, the semifinals. As you can see from the crowd cam here, viewers, the crowd here at the event is thinning out as many players have been eliminated, and we may have some side events, we may have some people just hanging out in the area, and then we will soon be down to just 8 players in this event, the semifinal players.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We're just waiting on 2 final matches. James Rigby and Justin Desai. That's Kylo Datavault versus Han 1 Green. Those 2 players facing off. And unfortunately for George the Hulk Hudson, he faced off against Wu Ophir Maram in the Swiss rounds. And George fell in 3 games to the top 4 Galactic Championship finisher, the Minneapolis regional winner. Wu on a run here with Cad Bane Tarkentown, so it was both Cads paired up in the top cut. So we will have at least one Cad Bane Tarkentown advancing on. But those are the 2 matches that we are waiting on. I think we're going to step away for a short break. Before we get to our semifinals, will we have another Han 2 ECL deck on top? We've got one heading to the top 4. Stay tuned. We've got more from Mesa coming shortly.
What for you, Josh? What do you think about this?
I am thrilled and excited to see what the semifinals bring us because we are going to feature what will be an explosive match without a doubt. We've seen McWoo and we have James Rigby. On the other side of the bracket, it was Cad Tarkentown versus Kylo Datavault. Back-to-back weekends, Kylo Datavault has been in the top cut of the sector qualifier.
Match War of the Hans, but they're very different decks. John Yellow, who we been on two different leaders, double yellow and ECL. Very
Win in that first game in the quarterfinals. We know this deck can go fast, it can hit hard, it has multiple pumps, but we also know how explosive the Han2 ECL deck can be. Han2 ECL, known as a bit more of an aggro deck, it can push pretty wide on the board. It can put big threats on the table, control things, and put the Han2 player in a good position. And we've seen McCravy make excellent use of Grogu throughout this weekend.
That's right. All right. They're shuffling on up. And of course, both these pricing and leaderboard position to consider.
That is a really good point. Now, something to think about in this matchup. McCravy on Energy Conversion Lab, 25 HP base. Of course, John Yellow gets the 5 HP. Even an early stolen AT hauler that could prove to be troublesome for McCravy. So McCravy will certainly have to keep the space arena in mind because I think if John wanted to be really aggressive and try to get 25 damage as quick as possible, space could be a place where he may be able to do that. The fist bump is given as these players draw their opening hands of the semifinals. You talked about these players being locked with a spot in the Galactic Championship main event. Each of these players guaranteed to walk away with 150 points added to their totals on the leaderboard. Now, I'm not sure exactly where McCravy was, but we know that John Morris came into this tournament with 150 points, so he's doubling what he's already done and will go up to 300 points on the leaderboard. And if John can keep this kind of momentum up, maybe he could find himself in the top 32 on the leaderboard, get the travel expenses covered to the Galactic Championship.
Yeah, a lot of stakes on this match in some sense, and the players are getting started. Let's see who ends up prevailing in this battle of the Hans.
McCravy, relaxed. He's ready. Keeping that opening hand. John Yellow taking the early mulligan. Again, if you're just joining us, John Yellow, this is John Morris out of Owensboro, Kentucky. He has finished in a top 8 of another sector qualifier, the Richmond sector qualifier. He finished in the top 8. So 2 top 8 finishes in sector qualifiers now for John Yellow as he looks to continue this deep run and make John Yellow.
Yeah, it could be interesting. Both players here, of course, have already had to have quite a bit of success to get this far. And now we're seeing the first play of the match. Believe
There
that's
it
a
is.
Grogu from McCravy.
Yeah, that's right. Game 1 is underway. McCravy's favorite play, the mysterious child, has graced us with his presence here in game 1. Grogu coming out on turn 1 for just 2 resources thanks to the Han action ability. Does take 2 damage though. McCravy keeping the initiative, the action ability removing that shield token. Just removing 1 damage from Grogu to take off the shield token. Grogu's action ability does give you that option. You heal up for 3 resources thanks to the Han action ability. When played as a unit, you create an X-Wing token, and then you can put Poe Dameron, you can attach him as a pilot upgrade.
Classic efficient play from Han 2, using that Poe Dameron in conjunction with Han's ability. You play the unit, and yeah, he gets damaged, but you're immediately turning him into a pilot, so you don't really care.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So in the end, McCravey ends with a 4-5 in the Space Arena. We talked about the Space Arena being an important place and something McCravey would have to keep an eye on with the Millennium Falcons and the possible AT haulers. John Yellow has the initiative.
All
L337
right.
going into base. First base damage of the semifinals. L337 will then quickly be taken. I believe the call was Poe,
Yeah, I
because
think
that
I
that
saw John
absolutely could
Yellow
come out.
indicate that Poe.
Yeah, thanks to Han 2's action ability, Poe Dameron quick to improvise a big threat on turn 3. 4 damage into Moss Eisley. But now we see Blue Leader coming out with the Han action ability, one less, paying the 2 extra resources then to move it into the ground arena, give it 2 experience tokens, ambush, and trade with the Kira unit. So now Poe Dameron, once again, will just cost McCravey the printed 5 resources.
Yeah, McCravey has made some pretty efficient plays here. John Yellow not in a fantastic spot. Still have that Grogu and the X-Wing that Poe Dameron developed onto the board. And John Yellow's board is completely clear. But here comes Han, maybe going for that 5, 6, 7. No, we're going to see a quick plot unit played here. And once again, we saw Tala Durith used earlier, and now we're seeing her again, giving Han hidden to that Han Solo leader.
John just trying to make sure that he is able to get in and attack with his Han leader unit. Now we are going to see McCravey deploying his own Han leader unit. McCravey's Han leader just a little bit smaller, 3-6 stats versus the 4-6 on Han Solo, the audacious smuggler on John's side. We're going to see, look at this play. It's great, solid tempo play for John Yellow. Sanctioner shuttle with the coordinate turned on is going to capture the token, the X-Wing token that was piloted by Poe Dameron, and that token will just go away. So permanent removal there out of Sanctioner shuttle. The
Yeah,
Grogu action ability, moving
this
that
is
one
one of
damage
the
on
interesting
Grogu
things
over to
about
the shuttle.
tokens. So capture normally is kind of a temporary form of removal because if the capture unit is itself removed, then the prisoner is released. But for token units, which can't go into those out of play zones, capture is essentially just defeat, just like how returning token units to hand also defeats them.
Is absolutely right. We've got 8 damage on Moss Eisley. That's John Yellow's base. 2 damage on Energy Conversion Lab, McCravey's base. We're going to see John Yellow's leader unit trading some damage with McCravey's Han leader unit. And now McCravey is going to make a trade. Han leader unit attacking and defeating the Tala Durith unit. And we're going to see the Energy Conversion Lab epic action used. Poe Dameron played from hand will gain ambush. And we are going to see the on-attack trigger. McCravey discard a card, dealing 2 damage to defeat the Sanctioner shuttle that had 1 damage on it thanks to Grogu. And Poe Dameron will clean up Han Solo, the audacious smuggler, leaving John Yellow with no units in play. And McCravey with a commanding position on the board. Poe Dameron and Grogu ready to heal Poe.
Yeah, Poe Dameron with ECL, that's a classic combo. It's been very strong ever since Poe Dameron was released. And we really see why here. McCravey able to eliminate 2 units at once, one with the actual ambush attack and one with the on attack ability to deal damage and knock out that Sanctioner shuttle. So McCravy continuing to control the board. John Yellow does seem to be in some trouble here.
Now we do have the Cantina Bouncer being played for John Yellow. An additional 3 to base. Cantina Bouncer putting McCravy's base up to 5, but Sabine's Masterpiece doing some major work here, getting the on-attack triggers. Because McCravy was able to put the Poe Dameron back in play, McCravy controlled an aggression unit and a command unit, able to deal an extra damage and get an experience token on the Sabine's Masterpiece. Now, John Yellow with the initiative, instantly playing Han Solo Reluctant Hero, ambushing and defeating Poe Dameron, and not taking any damage back.
Yeah, John Yellow maybe still in some trouble, but has managed to fight back and get control of the ground arena at least. There are still some real threats in space, though.
The blue leader putting another 3 damage on John Yellow's base, up to 16. We're going to see the Bounty Hunter's quarry onto the Cantina Bouncer as McCravy using that Han action ability to play the Gorilla attack.
Much damage on the base, the space units will be able to do it. There is the cunning, though, which is going to at least buy John Yellow a bit more time. Probably going to do exhaust.
Even though this extends the game, McCravy still has units in play that are threatening fatal damage. Constable putting another threat in the ground arena. Not great threat, but nevertheless, that 3 power, another unit that can finish this game.
Yeah. Are these the scariest?
We're going to see a hot shot blaster played onto Han. That's going to be Han Solo, Reluctant Hero, swinging for 8. McCravy's base up to 6 of game 1. He takes it. He's got an early lead here in the semifinals.
Tough match for John Yellow. Really felt like McCravy was in the driver's seat more or less all game. Even when John Yellow was regaining control of that ground arena, it just felt like it was so far too late. And
Poe Dameron that we saw be effective. McCravy has so many vital threats in the ground arena. He's really able to take over the ground arena pretty consistently. And one of the questions in my mind was, how does the space arena look for John? Can he use the space arena as maybe a lane to move into and have some success in? But McCravy was the one in game 1 that actually had that early Poe Dameron piloting the X-Wing token, and then followed that up with the Sabine's Masterpiece, which just grew and grew with the extra tokens and the extra value of the on attack. So that's a question for me. John Yellow has to figure it out. This space arena, he's got some great space threats, but McCravy showed that I do as well. And John Yellow's going to have to figure out an answer for those big threats.
all right, we're going to.
John Yellow has those 2 copies of Blue Ace in the sideboard, which could be an option for some of these space units. We know that McCravy's running things that have less than 5 HP, things like the Heroic Arc 170. You've also got the Red 5, which is very good in these Han 2 decks. Able to throw around the damage with something like Grogu and then get that on attack trigger rolling. So we'll see if John Yellow can shore up things just a little bit with his sideboard. Motions. That would be some kind of magic trick. That'd be quite interesting.
Well, looks like we're about to head into our next round.
John Yellow will have the initiative going into game 2, a crucial game 2 at the minimum. John Yellow's tournament life on the line in this game 2. As John Yellow once again, back-to-back games, taking the early mulligan. And McCravy maybe still thinking this one through. He was quick to keep his first hand in game 1, and it looks like he's keeping yet again. Gravy has really shown us on stream throughout this weekend the extreme power level of this Han 2 ECL deck. Such great versatility, ways to control the board very well through things like Grogu, the extra damage from something like we are going to see the disclose effect here. Qui-Gon, Han Solo, and I believe another copy of Faith in Your Friends there. Fulfilling the requirements, 2 spy tokens generated for John Yellow, and McCravey is going to play a 3-cost unit. It's red 5 coming out, the prestige copy on turn 1 thanks to the Han action ability. Spy token, and now that heroic arc 170 coming out on turn 2. Again, Han Solo.
Yeah. Now, so we have the 3 spies for 6 total damage each turn from John Yellow's side of the board, but McCravey currently swinging for 7 each turn. It looks like John Yellow didn't have a way to use that last resource.
It's not as much damage as McCravey is presenting, and it takes more actions. Let's see if John Yellow can shift the momentum a little bit in this match as we start one action at a time.
Swing over and over. Not, I think, the most desirable situation here for John Yellow, but also by no means an obviously losing position. I would say McCravey is racing a little bit faster, but it is by no means over.
A slightly greedy play from McCravey. He played the Poe Dameron using piloting, played it as a pilot unit on red 5, and then spare the target, bounced the red 5 back to hand. So
Exactly put John into a totally commanding position.
McCravey getting great usage out of heroic art, was able to take out a spy token when played, and now it has done 8 total damage to John's base as the damage total on John's base goes up to 11. We see the Han action ability bringing John up to 6 total resources. Playing a card from hand as a resource and readying it. He'll have to defeat a resource at the start of the next action phase. But John looking to deploy and very likely get up to 7 resources here. The action back onto McCravey, just going to play the Poe Dameron from hand using that epic action from Energy Conversion Lab. So Poe is going to ambush into one of the spies, discarding Outer Rim Constable with the on attack ability, dealing 2 damage to another spy token, 2 spies cleaned out in 1 action. But now we see both Hans being deployed with the Han leader unit, John Yellow, looking to get another resource, and the action is on his side.
Leader Han
Spy
on the field. 5, 6, 7 time? It may be.
token was able to damage the Han Solo leader unit, but Han got into John's base for 3. McCravey
All
losing his
right.
ground arena, but does have the initiative, and he has the space arena. We are going to see red 5 come through. That first action, 20 damage on John Yellow's base. John Yellow's going to play cunning. Let's see what the picks are here. Looks like he's going to bounce back the heroic arc. And I believe he may have given Han Solo.
Only 7 HP. Yeah, I think John Yellow is going to I think John Yellow is going to struggle here again. I don't know.
We do see Queen Amidala coming out with that Han action ability. It was the +4 power given to the 7-cost Han Solo unit. So 10 damage dealt to Energy Conversion Lab. McCravey claims one more
Now,
pump and a swing from Han Solo could finish this game tower.
yeah, it's interesting. I think John Yellow I had thought that that Han was damaged and it isn't. So McCravey actually may end up losing this one for sure because there needs to be some answer to that Han. ECL already used. If there isn't, a single hotshot blaster, a single surprise strike, even potentially a cunning with the buff could be enough to allow this Han Solo reluctant hero to carry the game for John Yellow, even as the board looks pretty unfavorable and there's more damage on the base. It is a situation with a 30 HP base against a 25.
You are absolutely right. The question now, does McCravey have a way to answer it? We're going to see the Han action ability. Now, he does have a way here. He's going to get Sentinel playing the Obi-Wan Kenobi Protective Padawan for just 2 resources, putting 2 damage on it. But now we are going to see Millennium Falcon piece of junk coming out. The Obi-Wan Kenobi will have Sentinel. So it is a little bit of a roadblock here for the Han reluctant hero. But
A
now we have
breaking
damage
in
presented
would
in the
win the
space
game, but
arena.
I guess John Yellow does not have it here. Now, the Falcon here is not quite in range. Even with a surprise strike, would be off by 1. And I believe McCravey does have lethal this turn. So it's a very interesting situation. Game hanging in the balance.
What a game. McCravey, a very decisive victory in game 1, but game 2, a whole lot closer. Both players trying to tiptoe their way to victory. McCravey looking for a spot in the finals of a sector qualifier. It's his action to take following the Millennium Falcon. It looks like Queen Amidala's going to base. 5 more damage on Moss
Cunning!
Eisley. 25, and he's got Cunning to exhaust. Oh, man. He's going to exhaust the 2 units, plus 4 power to Millennium Falcon. And if McCravey doesn't have a response, Falcon swings for game.
The spy goes in, and it's not enough. John Yellow does manage to get the win.
Wow. Brilliant play. Cunning doing massive amounts of work for John Yellow.
We talked earlier about it
Brilliant.
being one of the best cards in this deck, and it was definitely a great card for John Yellow in that scenario. A surprise strike would not have done it, but that copy of Cunning not only exhausted 2 of McCravey's units, it set that Falcon up to break through and get the win.
Just top-notch play from both of these players. John Yellow saw the line to victory in the ground arena vanish, but having both Millennium Falcon piece of junk and Cunning in hand, there were more tricks up John's sleeve. And now as we head to game 3, all of the pressure, this big moment in the top 4 of a sector qualifier, 50 additional points on the line here for the person that advances to the finals, more prizing, and going for the glory of becoming a sector qualifier champion. McCravey will have the initiative in this all-deciding game 3.
Yeah. Now, this game 3, yeah, winner makes the finals. High stakes Star Wars Unlimited gameplay. Yes, they have both already qualified for the Galactic Championship, but additional prizes as well as a big chunk of leaderboard points are on the line. John Yellow versus McCravey, Han 1 versus Han 2. Who will win? And I
Again,
do
last
think this
weekend,
shows, that 25 HP base, that can be a real weakness against an aggressive opponent. Um, John Yellow able to find his way through there, even with McCravey having some quite good options, because even though he had 20 damage on his base, that meant that he had 10 HP left, and 18 damage on McCravey's base meant there was only 7 left, and Falcon plus Cunning was just enough.
now we do have a major update from the other semifinal match It was Cad Bane Tarkentown, piloted by Wu, Ophir Maram versus James Rigby on Kylo Data Vault. Now, historically, these blue-green villain decks have not been a good matchup for Cad Tarkentown, and that remains to be the case. The Minneapolis regional champion falling in the semifinals. James Rigby advancing on to the finals of this sector qualifier on Kylo Data Vault. We've seen Kylo Data Vault in the top 4 of a sector qualifier 2 straight weekends, and this time it will be going all the way to the finals as James knocks out one of the absolute giants of this game. Ophir has put up such tremendous results throughout this game's short history. What a win for James and Kylo Data Vault in the finals.
Yeah, and I do think that I would personally consider, some could argue about this. I would personally consider Ophir, aka Wu, to be one of the strongest players in the game. However, not an invincible player, and he did face defeat here. So we're gonna see Kylo in the finals, and we'll see whether or not that perhaps more control-oriented gameplay is going to be the key to conquering a more mid-rangey meta. Of these two, if you're playing Kylo, which would you rather see?
I think I would probably want to see the Han 1 yellow. It's really tough because both of these decks can push wide on the board, but McCravey can push wide on the board much easier, I feel like. And you have Queen Amidala, which is a massive card in a matchup against a more control-oriented deck. You also have Karis Nimic, which is just so good against these control decks. So I think I'd have to lean towards Han 2 ECL, but both decks can be very aggressive and pose a real threat. But now the final game is underway. McCravey with the initiative. It's Sabine's masterpiece coming out on turn 1. Thanks to that Han action ability, it'll have 2 damage on it. McCravey plays it for 1 less resource, and it's Tala Durith coming out on turn 1 for John Yellow as he uses the Han action ability. A little bit of a different start for John Yellow here in game 3.
Yeah, Taladurith on the field. Not necessarily the hypest card to have at this point in the game.
McCravey has the initiative. He's deciding game 3, 3 damage on McCravey's base as McCravey retains the initiative, and he will respond with 3 damage of his own to start the next action phase. But it's 3-3-3. Back and forth we go with Tala getting in once again. And now here comes the big threat tower. Queen Amidala on 4.
Stolen AT hauler in space.
The stolen AT hauler can be a real problem here. And that 4 damage is really going to start to add up. So while there is more damage being presented currently for McCravey, he is behind.
HP left for McCravey.
We talk about a big play here.
HP left for McCravey.
We talk about a big play. Here it is. Han Solo leader unit was deployed for McCravey, and he is going to play the Crucible for 1 less resource. That's a 6 cost 5/5 from Secrets of Power. When played and when defeated, you give an experience token to each other friendly unit. So McCravey's board just went from pretty big to real big.
Yeah, P left for McCravey, but man, his board is looking strong.
Pressure. The Fast Falcon, as you call it, tower coming back out. Millennium Falcon, piece of junk. Millennium Falcon, piece of junk. Taladurith was answered by one of the spy tokens, but now we see the second spy and Han coming in for a total of 7. It's 14 damage.
This is a very interesting scenario here. McCravey's board extremely strong, but John Yellow bringing out a lot of threats in that space arena. 2 stolen AT haulers backed up by the Millennium Falcon.
And right now it becomes a math question. McCravey having to think through, do I claim the initiative or do I attack with Queen Amidala and deal 5? The problem is if Queen Amidala, excuse me, attacking for 6, right now you're thinking, how many actions does it take to win this game? And we're going to see John Yellow actually, John claim, okay, maybe I missed something there. I may have misspoke, but Queen Amidala does not attack here. So I think McCravey may have passed because Queen Amidala had to keep the Han Solo leader unit in check. And then that
Yeah.
allowed John to essentially do the pass claim here. And now John, with the initiative, has lethal on board.
Yeah, I think you're right, Josh. I believe McCravey chose not to attack with Queen Amidala, knowing that her 6 power with that experience from Crucible would be enough to take out John's copy of Han
Oh, it's
if
surprise
he
strike.
deployed. Oh,
Surprise strike for 6 with Millennium Falcon. 22 damage on McCravey's base. One more swing with either stolen AT hauler, and McCravey is eliminated.
McCravey needs a bright hope or something here. Some way to block both of these attacks, but I don't know if he has it.
I don't
Looks
think he
through those
does.
resources, trying to find an answer. I'm not seeing it immediately. Cravey
And he would have to
considering the
deal
board.
16 damage.
Crucible buffing all those units, but it just wasn't fast enough. McCravey.
Two Yoda Data Vault. Two Yoda Data Vault. This weekend, only one Han 2 ECL in the top cut and no Yodas in the top cut, which I think most people would find that pretty surprising. And then you find these two Han 1 yellow decks that have stormed into the top cut, and John Yellow, a former sector qualifier top cut finisher, has made his way all the way to the finals with a deck that he loves and a deck that he has been playing.
Of a tempo deck, and Kylo is something quite different as well.
What a
We
run.
should be coming back to you shortly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the live stream of the Sector Qualifier in Mesa, Arizona. We are set for the finals. We started with over 300 players here in Mesa, and it all comes down to our final two players, John Morris versus James Rigby. Han 1 Yellow versus Kylo Data Vault. I'm Josh Snyder, TowerNumber9, with me in the booth. And this is going to be an exciting matchup. A more aggro tempo style deck versus a little bit more of a control oriented deck with Kylo.
Yeah, should be very interesting here. Uh, as we were saying earlier, this has been a pretty mid-rangey meta here in Secrets of Power, but these are not really mid-range decks. So Han, double yellow Han is really kind of a tempo deck, and Kylo Data Vault is more of a control build. So both of them have managed to.
Last weekend at the Tilburg Sector Qualifier, made it all the way to the top four. And James has brought it all the way here to the finals in Mesa, Arizona. John Morris on the left will be piloting this Han 1 Yellow, this mono cunning deck. John Morris again came into this tournament with 150 points, already locked with a spot for the main event at the Galactic Championship, but is going to be walking away with at least 200 points, both with this Kylo Data Vault deck. Couldn't be more excited for him. Your first top cut appearance, and now a chance to become a champion.
Yeah, very impressive showing to have your initial appearance have such a great result. We'll see whether or not he can take it all the way and become the sector qualifier champion here in Mesa, Arizona. Should be an exciting match.
Absolutely. And John Yellow, of course, a seasoned veteran at this point. These top cut appearances. Only saw one Hantu ECL in the top cut this weekend, and it falls short. Last weekend, Sip taking over the lead on the points leaderboard over Bobby Sapphire, as Sip went all the way up to 735 points. That's the number to beat right now. Bobby Sapphire came into this weekend with 600. What a fantastic weekend it was last weekend. Sip actually was talking to him a little bit after that event, and him and his teammate, the Swoop Racers, him and Baton, they were actually talking about maybe not being able to make it to the sector qualifier because of the bad weather last weekend. But they had determination, Tower. They had in the finals this weekend in Mesa. James will start with the initiative in game one with this Kylo Data Vault. And we are set for an action-packed finals with a lot of points and prizing on the line.
Yeah, that's determination to be prepared for a 12-hour drive. Well, not I think the decks that some would have predicted would be on top here, but it should be a very interesting match.
Out this weekend. And now we're going to start, speaking of Kylo Ren, with that action ability. Discarding Craving Power, allowing James to draw a.
Creating spy tokens. Very relevant. This is a card that we've seen played several times on stream here. Let's see. It's like James moving on to turn two. We were talking earlier about multiple small units, and creating 2 spy tokens on the first turn is a good way to begin that process.
James is going to play Resupply, ramping up to 4 resources, but this does leave the board wide open for John Yellow as he comes in for a total of 4.
I think the play there is maybe less relevant for the card itself and more relevant for what it signals as a setup for the future.
Dr. Pershing coming out, but Rogue Operative sending 4 damage into Data Vault. Another 2 from the Spy token. And I believe James has just claimed the initiative. He's going to send the damage total on James's base up to 12 as John Yellow as he plays another Faith in Your Friends. And this board is massive, and James is not at a resource count yet where he can wipe this board. He's going to get another card and very likely will be creating a couple more Spy tokens. Oh my goodness, Han Solo action ability used to get the extra ready resource, and Millennium Falcon piece of junk coming in ready. It's 15 damage already on James's base.
This is an extremely strong start for John Yellow. I can't imagine James is happy to see this.
Oh, but he was able to get Supreme Leader Snoke in the discard pile off of the Kylo action ability, and Palpatine's
Oh,
return brings Supreme Leader.
normally a card that's only going to see play on 8 resources or later, but James was able to engineer it, bring that Snoke out sooner, clear the spies. But the problem is, with Snoke then being bounced by the Cantina bouncer, the stat penalty goes away for those other units. They keep the pressure on. And once again, James is looking at a very crowded board on the other side.
He absolutely is. He was able to use the Han action ability, deploy the Han leader, get James up to 26 damage on his base thanks to more attacks coming down in the ground arena from Han and the Rogue Operative. James in some trouble here. Just 7 HP remaining on Data Vault.
Yeah, James did manage to clear all the spies, but with Supreme Leader Snoke getting bounced, his presence did not slow down the rest of John's army here. And James looks like he's really under the gun to pull out some kind of answer fast. Only 7 HP left on the base. John absolutely representing lethal on board. Here comes Kylo.
Kylo is deployed. When you deploy Kylo, you can play any number of upgrades from your discard pile onto Kylo. We're going to see the Crave.
James is going to need to have game two go a lot better if he wants to preserve his hopes at the finals here.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. What a start. We talked about it a little bit before game one, Tower, how important cards like Faith in Your Friends are against this type of matchup. You dodge that 1-for-1 removal early. You're able to put multiple little threats on the board that just continue to chip away at the armor of this 33 HP Data Vault. Things like Millennium Falcon. We saw the piece of junk doing a lot of work as well. And, sometimes that Saboteur keyword is just what you need.
Yeah. Saboteur there, we've seen an increase. So I was mentioning this earlier on in the stream. We've seen an increase in the strength of various Sentinel options in the game. And Saboteur can be one very direct way to counter them. The Rogue Operative, a card that came out in Spark of Rebellion, has not always been considered the best. It's really a card that has had some presence, but not a staple at all. However, that Saboteur was just what John needed to get through Kylo's powerful Sentinel presence and do that last damage he needed to win.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, as these players getting ready, looking through the sideboards here, James very likely seeing how that first game went, may want to bring in some ways to help stabilize early in the ground arena, and he does have an extra copy of Lieutenant Childson in the sideboard. He's running 2 in the main deck. He has 1 in the sideboard. I think Lieutenant Childson, that third copy, absolutely finds its way into the main deck for this second game. A third copy of Top Target also in the sideboard. That could come in, giving some healing options for James to try and help stabilize and get to the later game. He also has Eager Escort Fighter in this deck in the sideboard that could potentially come in and answer something like one of those 3-cost Millennium Falcons.
All right. The players are shuffling on up. Believe the choices have been made. John Yellow with a very fast victory in game one of the finals. Can he repeat the performance and win this whole event? Or are we going to see a game three with James taking the win here? We'll have to see, but I'm excited to see how this one goes.
Absolutely. Should be exciting. Now on John Yellow's side, does have some options for this particular matchup in the sideboard. Things like Hand Disruption can be good against these control decks, something like Bodhi Rook. It not only puts a body on the board that can help put threats in play, but also discard these non-unit cards, some of these upgrades or possibly event removal cards in James's hand. So wouldn't be surprised at all to see Bodie Rook coming out of the sideboard for John Yellow.
Yeah, this could be interesting here. If I am one thing is for sure, if I am James, I am not feeling super confident or happy about how that game one went. You know, it was a very rough experience, I think, for him. And we'll see whether or not he can put together a better showing here. But he is a little bit under the gun.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And, ideally, this Kylo Data Vault deck, you're playing ramp. You want to ramp if you can. Of course, we're running 3 Super Laser Technician, 3 Resupply. So a lot of times turn 2 could be ramp. And there's not a lot of early turn 1 plays, right? There's Dr. Pershing, which can help start to draw some cards. But there's not a lot of early plays that are going to impact the board. And when you see things like multiple early faith in your friends and you're staring down multiple little threats over the first couple turns, it can be very difficult to stabilize those kinds of boards.
Yeah. All right. Well, they're going to get started here. Resource decisions being made. Could be a very exciting match. Resources have been allocated. James is going to lead us off with Dr. Pershing.
Dr. Pershing, get that card advantage going if you're James. But look at this, John Yellow, he's got it again, Tower, that opening faith in your friends. I think if there's any turn 1 play you want in this matchup, it absolutely has to be that faith in your friends.
Yeah, the question is, does he have both the faith in your friends and also the disclose? Looks like he does.
Snoke, and he went to draw a card off of that ability, but you can't actually draw a card unless you discard an upgrade. But I think
Got
he
it.
had seen the card already, so he's letting the judge know and just asking how they should
Yeah,
proceed.
and
And
it
I
looks
think he
like
just
they're
has to
making him
shuffle the
shuffle
deck.
his deck or something. Okay.
Yeah. Game 1, and that would instantly clear out those tokens and allow James to claim a bounty.
Yep. So that Snoke, we saw the setup in the first game, but it wasn't enough to actually stop John. Let's see if it does. Let's see if James can pull off the same play and if it will have maybe more impact here in game two. I think one of the things that made that Snoke play a lot less impactful was John having the very quick follow up with a Cantina bouncer, which got Snoke off the field, and then James couldn't easily replay it because he didn't actually have enough resources.
And one thing to keep in mind that they produce, check out Metal Fab, and also check out the giveaway for these beautiful McClunky Gaming Initiative tokens. One of those great initiative tokens.
Yep. And they are really nice looking tokens. I have one of them near me at my desk over.
See Super Laser Blast, Anakin Skywalker. I can't quite make out that other event underneath. Believe it's a no glory only results. The Super Laser Blast will be dumped here, but more importantly, John Yellow knows that Palpatine's return not an option unless James drew into it during this regroup phase.
Yeah. Once again, John Yellow presenting a lot of different threats for James, but this time, maybe not.
In the discard pile, the heirloom lightsaber. Millennium Falcon gets in for 3, but we know that James has an Anakin Skywalker Champion of Mortis in hand and can give -3/-3 to 2 different units or -6/-6 to 1 unit, having both a villainy and a heroism card in the discard pile.
Yeah, so if you're James, do you just clear the spies or do you kill the Falcon with the theory that you're going to be able to get Snoke out for the spies or what? What do you think here?
3, James claiming the bounty, healing 4 damage from his base back down to 15 damage on.
buying himself some time and getting rid of the spies. Anakin is also going to be a significant threat to any other ground units. That Falcon uncontested in space.
Discard one of them, craving power will be discarded. And a condemn and no glory only results left in play. And look at this, it's the Sanctioner shuttle coming out, when played, coordinate, capturing the Pershing.
Yeah, Dr. Pershing now captured. Once again, a wide range of threats here being presented by John Yellow. Not sure how James is.
But this time doesn't have it in play, the rogue operative. So James is going to deploy Kylo Ren with the first action. We are going to see craving power played on Kylo yet again. Kylo Ren will become a. You've got
You really don't want
response.
those space threats to stick around. And it looks like James agrees with the two of us, Josh. That Falcon is off the field.
Absolutely right. Trying to dial things back a little bit in the space arena, but John Yellow has another Millennium Falcon piece of junk immediately following the first. James putting the entrenched onto Kylo Ren as well. Kylo Ren is massive, taking out the Han leader unit, but surprise strike onto Millennium Falcon. 6 more damage to base. It's 25 damage on Data Vault. James is able to successfully clean up the ground arena as Anakin defeats Bodhi Rook, but now another 2 damage.
Which would take him out of range of a potential surprise strike from the Falcon. But I think James is going to need to find some answer to this space arena, or things are going to be pretty problematic.
That is a great point. We do see John Yellow paying that 1 resource to keep a Millennium Falcon in play. Whenever you ready cards during the regroup phase, you either have to pay 1 resource or return the Millennium Falcon piece of junk to your hand. Millennium Falcon just cancels it out, putting James right back to 27.
Yeah. That Walker, though, that could be a very important card if James can.
Struggle in Millennium Falcon Lando's Pride. It's a 5/5 unit in the space arena. Another resource appearing to be generated. I believe James has already claimed the initiative. We're not going to use that Han action ability.
Falcon, another major threat.
No glory only results, taking out the Millennium Falcon Lando's Pride. We've got Millennium Falcon piece of junk. All the Falcons here, another 3 damage to James's base. And the Reinforcement Walker getting into John's base for 6. It's up to 11 damage in total after Anakin.
John could have won if he had that surprise strike, but he didn't have it. He's using Han's ability for something. What could it be?
Getting another ready resource. Believe James may have claimed the initiative. We're going to see Tech being smuggled in, and now Kira is going to be played as well. And we'll take a look at James's hand.
Tech also represented a big threat if there's any pump that has been left in the discard pile there.
Is absolutely right. James has the initiative. Just 2 HP remaining on base. He needs to really do multiple things in one action. He needs to answer units, but he also needs during this action phase. It's going to be Reinforcement Walker attacking into Kira, taking out Kira, healing 3 again from James's base, back down to 28. Does John have a pump here? The Millennium Falcon with a pump could.
Yeah, this is a really crazy situation, but it doesn't appear that John has an immediate victory. The attacks from that reinforcement walker have just been just the drip of extra healing that James needs to stay in this game. John may not have it here, but James is.
Off the board, and Devastator is going to absolutely annihilate Tech with that wind plate ability, dealing damage to Tech equal to the number of resources that James controls. And now John Yellow looking for something here because this board will be very difficult to get through. The faith in your friends, he'll go searching the top 3 for a card.
Tina bouncer to send that devastator back to hand, but It seems that James might actually be stabilizing here.
Anakin Skywalker getting in for 5. John Yellow up to 16 damage on his base.
Yeah.
Sentinels in both arenas that John has to try and figure out a way to deal with. We do see Bodhi Rook coming out. And James with 2 Power of the Dark Sides and a Timely intervention. The Timely is stripped off of that Bodhi Rook when played ability.
It's an interesting situation here. John Devastator, and he'll actually destroy John Yellow's base.
James has worked so hard to stabilize here in game 2 and try and force a game 3. And it looks like he may have done it. He has the initiative, and you're absolutely right. 2 swings, and this game is over here in Mesa, Arizona. What a show that was from James in game 2.
Yeah, that was a crazy match. Man, it really did look like John had it, but James just clinging to life. The reinforcement walker barely healing him enough. And yeah, we'll have to see what comes next.
For John Yellow, you have to be frustrated. You were so close. You had James to, I believe at one point he had him at 32 damage on. And at one point he just needed a pump with all of the resources. He had tech in play, but there were no pumps. He didn't have it. He wasn't able to close out the game during that window of opportunity that had presented itself. And James was able to capitalize. And you have to know that James is thankful for that because now he has forced a deciding game 3.
Tough one there for John Yellow, I think, just watching that kind of slip away. The reinforcement walker barely healing James enough to survive against John's threats in the space arena. Really tough scenario.
So now one last game decides an additional 50 points on the leaderboard. It decides who will get the glory of becoming a sector qualifier champion. The last premier sector qualifier championship before we get our first ever rotation in Star Wars Unlimited, with the release of A Lawless Time coming in March. We've had some exciting previews and spoilers for A Lawless Time throughout the last week or so, seeing all these great new cards, the extremely exciting multi-aspect cards that are entering into the game. It's an exciting time to be a Star Wars Unlimited fan. And it's an exciting time for these two players as they battle it out for glory, and a lot of amazing prizes on the line as well.
Yeah. Should be interesting to see just what happens in the future of the game. I, for one, am pretty excited. I'm excited both by seeing a bunch of things leave and new possibilities be considered, and also by seeing a bunch of these new cards that are being previewed. I think we have some very cool ones coming out soon.
We absolutely do. And if you want to become a sector qualifier champion or a regional champion, you'll have a chance in Paris, France, January 31st through the February 1st. It's a limited sector qualifier. And then we have the last major event for set 6, the regional qualifier in Milwaukee, Wisconsin next month, February 20th through the 22nd. A limited in premier tournament will take place at the regional, and you can fight for the glory as well. Make sure to get your tickets today.
All right. Game 3. It's 1-1. Whoever wins this game will win the entire event. The pressure is on. John had a very quick win in game 1. In game 2, James barely clung to life and managed to stop him. We're about to see what's going to happen in game 3. the final game of the final match. This one is for the whole thing.
Both of these players deciding to take a mulligan here in the final game. What do we
Neither
find?
seeing what they wanted. Not sure what exactly was being mulliganed for, but we're about to see whether John can put the pressure on or whether James will be able to stop him again, bring out those big sentinels and lock things down. Here we go.
John Yellow starting with the initiative in this deciding game. He has been able to play Faith in Your Friends as his opening play back-to-back games. We're going to see the Han action ability, bringing John up to 3 resources. James discarding the heirloom lightsaber off of the Kylo action ability, drawing a card, and Bodhi Rook comes out. Looking at James's hand, he's able to discard a non-unit card, and he discards the Vigilance.
Yeah. Vigilance is a very powerful card. You know, we were talking about cunning being a very relevant card. Vigilance is too. Vigilance is actually so strong that it frequently sees play out of aspect. Cunning does occasionally, but is normally seen in those double cunning builds.
John Yellow able to get the first damage on James's base of this final game with Bodhi Rook. 3 damage to Data Vault. And we see Cicatro Vizago coming out, that really cool new 3-cost 3/4 from Secrets of Power that could generate some additional card advantage. James just continuing to make the most of the Kylo action ability, discarding another legal authority to draw a card. And now we're going to see Cicatro Vizago swinging for 3, revealing a tech on top, and James pays the 1 resource instead of letting John draw that card. And now we see Faith in Your Friends a little bit later than the first couple games, but nevertheless, Tower, this could mean 4 units in the ground arena.
Yeah. Faith in Your Friends. Does he have the disclose? Looks like he does. Lando's Falcon, another Faith in Your Friends, and I'm not entirely sure what that third card is. I think it's an L3. But that is going to be the aspect icons that John Yellow needs to bring 2 spies onto the board. And once again, James being swarmed here. And it's even worse with the second Faith in Your Friends being played now. The question being, can John Yellow find the aspect icons he needs to replace it in his hand and give him those 2 spies once more? If so, James may be in a spot of trouble here.
This is a extremely volatile situation that has developed for James quickly. We've
And look
got the
at that.
disclose.
He
It's
drew
another
another
Faith in
Faith
Your
in Your
Friends.
Friends.
We have
He
6 units in the ground arena. This is madness.
Yeah, and he's gonna be able to probably play that other copy of Faith in Your Friends that he drew from the second one there, get a total of 6 spies onto the board between those. James does have the Palpatine's Return in hand. Can he get Snoke into the discard pile?
The problem right now for James, he's yet to ramp. He's still only on 5 resources, and John is showing a ton of damage right now. A total of 14 damage being represented in the ground arena. This is wild, and James just doesn't have it. There it is. The fist bump is given. John Yellow has done it. John Morris has come in from Kentucky to Mesa, Arizona, and he is now a sector qualifier champion. Wow.
What a brutal game. That was even worse for James than game 1. John Yellow swarming the board, and James just could not find his answers, decided to call it a day there. What a surprising ending to this after a super close game 2. Game 3 was the least close of them yet. That was wild.
What an immaculate performance for John Yellow. Both of those players opted to mulligan in the final game, and unfortunately for James, it led to a hand that was filled with a lot of expensive cards and cards that did not interact well with the board early. And then when you put multiple faith in your friends on top of all that for John Yellow, it was too much for James to overcome. And John Yellow's second top cut appearance at a sector qualifier has led to him becoming a champion.
Yeah, that was a very that was a very swift victory in game 3. Well done to John Yellow. That was, man, what a finals.
That
Faith in Your
was
Friends,
crazy.
very instrumental card. We had talked about it early, and man, that prediction really did, pan out with Faith in Your Friends into Faith in Your Friends, all 3 copies in the hand in that last game. That was wild.
Yeah, I mean, if you can present multiple threats at once, and a card like Faith in Your Friends is perfect for that, you're also replacing that card. So you get to replace Faith in Your Friends with another card in hand, and you're putting multiple threats in play. It can be very, very difficult for these control decks, and we saw it play out to fruition in that game. But John Morris, your champion here in Mesa, Arizona, close to 370 players, around 370 total players traveled into Arizona to compete in this sector qualifier, and John Morris reigns supreme, taking 250 points to add to his total. John Morris up to 400 points on the leaderboard. He could absolutely be trying to go for that top 32 now, in a good position after a big win today.
Yeah. I think believe we are going to be attempting to get a winner's interview here, so stay tuned. Should be very interesting. John Yellow with the double Cunning Han, maybe the last hurrah for that deck before it rotates out.
Yeah,
Big
it's
win. You know,
it's
this was a
so
deck that was
exciting.
strong even in set 1. This deck, saw some competitive success, and now coming back in set 6 to win a sector qualifier and, stay as one of those decks that has been relevant to one degree or another for quite some time.
It's just exciting because this is a deck that wasn't really on most people's radar coming into this event. And all of a sudden, you have two in the top cut. It was really a phenomenal run for these Han 1 players, pairing double cunning together. Great success, and it really panned out. And maybe they were just able to feast on all of the more aggro decks. We know Han 2 ECL was the most represented deck this weekend. We also know that decks like Cad Bane Tarkentown and Sabe Tarkentown showed up as well. And, you when you have cunning, when you have a Han 1 double cunning deck, you have the card cunning, and you face off against a lot of matchups where you're staring down a 25 HP base, you love to see it. I mean, Cunning is the card that just changes the math and changes the momentum of the races so easily.
Yeah, Cunning, very powerful and relevant card. And there are other cards. The other double aspect cards, well, except for command, are also very good. Vigilance sees a lot of play. Double red hasn't been as popular overall, but aggression can be a very powerful card in the right spot for sure. But Cunning, really a classic. Really, really a classic, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I'm almost curious, was this a I'm going to bring a deck. Now, obviously, John Morris has played this deck before, and this may just be his deck. He may just run this deck consistently, but was it I'm going to bring a deck that can answer the answer, right? These Tarkentown decks come in, want to answer the Han 2 decks. Well, I'm going to counter the counter deck. Nevertheless, whether that was the thought process or not, it's paid off for John Morris in dividends in Mesa. As we wait just a moment longer, we may have a winter's interview, but we do want to, in the meantime, say thank you to every one of you for tuning in throughout this weekend, for supporting McClunky Gaming and all the great work they're doing. Again, thank you to Metal Fab, our sponsor. Don't forget to try to get in the giveaways of those Metal Fab McClunky Gaming Initiative tokens. The Discord description, or excuse me, the link for that Discord giveaway down in the description below. I also want to say thank you to Jack and FFG for making this event possible and helping make the streams possible as well. And also, thank you to Star City Games for running and organizing the event. And a huge thank you to all the judges and staff that worked so hard throughout the weekend so that everyone could enjoy this great game that we all love. And we were able to see some top-notch action. Star Wars Unlimited really displayed at a high quality the entire weekend.
Big shout out to Tim and Claire running this stream, making it all possible for this and many other events that we've seen broadcast here at McClunky Gaming. Also, shout out to GrumpyElephant and Pasquale, who helped us as casters in some of the earlier rounds. Pasquale, in particular, coming in live from a cruise ship, I believe, to cast some Star Wars Unlimited. So, shout out to them. We will hopefully be bringing you that winner's interview shortly. I believe the winner is talking to Star City Games, getting some stuff set up, and we will soon have a discussion there.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing what John has to say. Would love to get his input and the thought behind bringing this deck. If there was some real thought into what the meta looked like, or if this is a deck that we know he's played before, he's had good success before. In fact, I'm almost positive, and we can confirm this with him when we get him shortly for the interview, but I believe this Han 1 yellow, he was running that, I believe, back in Richmond. We'll let him confirm, but if that's the case, what a amazing, decorated history he has with this Han 1 double cunning deck as he just catapulted extremely high up on the leaderboard, all the way up to 400 points. You love to see it. Taking the champion playmat, the champion promo cards as well, getting that very special uncut sheet of the event pack cards as well. Some phenomenal prizing.
Yeah, and this is it's going to make a big deal for those leaderboard points as well. Overall, potential event for the game should be events that we're seeing in the meta for Secrets of Power. I think are as both events in their own right and also as kind of a send off for the first phase of the game. We saw some surprising and power ultimately two decks that I think people weren't really expecting in that top cut. And I'm going to be excited to see also opens up or doesn't, I suppose, once we see the release of A Lawless Time. I think the title of the set, Lawless Time, might actually be a bit of what we see with all sorts of different reevaluation of some of the rules of deck building and general strategy that people thought applied in the first 2 years of the game. Post rotation, with that first year of sets leaving play, I think we're going to see things looking very different.
Yeah, you were absolutely right. Things are going to look extremely different. We're getting word from Claire. I believe John has made his way over to the streaming table where he will join us for a winners.
Jammed thousands of games on Han 1 Yellow. It's always been my comfort pick, and it's got game into most decks. Previous set 4-star came around, so I put it down for a bit, but I picked it back up. It can grind out with the mid-range decks. It's great against aggro. I was a bit greedy with my deck choices, and put the control cards, the tech that I have for control, I put that in the sideboard, because I didn't anticipate a lot of it, and it paid off. So I just went with what I was comfortable with and what I felt had a decent matchup into Han 2 ECL and Yoda Data Vault, and it paid off.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
that's
you had
absolutely
a very
exciting.
impressive showing.
Do know that they tend to be a little weak to faith in your friends. I was fortunate enough in game one to have multiple faith in your friends. I had the rogue operative, so I was able to jam a lot of damage. And I knew that was my game plan. My game plan was going to be, aggressive and just try to push as much damage as quickly as possible. So sitting down in game one, I was pretty ecstatic to see that opening hand and to see multiple faiths. Game two was a little rough. I got a little flustered by the judge. Drew the nuts and he drew dead. He didn't have anything, so I got a little lucky, and better lucky than good, right?
I have heard that one before, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you had some. It was interesting, the one loss was extremely prolonged. It seemed like you could easily have slipped in there and got the win if things had gone a little different. But the
Yeah,
two wins were extremely quick and decisive games.
yeah, he stuck that reinforcement walker, so my 5 damage, was a bit slow for that heal. I was digging. I knew he had the Devastator, so I was digging for the bounce. I couldn't find it. It was just a little clunky and awkward. My resource row wasn't helping out any when he killed my tech. So it was just, the next card, the card I drew the turn he killed me, was spare the target. So it was just
Oh,
one card a
just a
little,
little late.
yeah.
Well, John, one last question for
Hmm.
you. You are now up to 400 points on the leaderboard because you came in with 150 points.
Yeah.
You've claimed 250 today. Now 400 points. Are you going to
Hmm.
keep grinding and try to secure that top 32 spot on the leaderboard?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have the limited PQ in Lexington, Kentucky. That's where I'm from. So it's only a few hours down the road. So I'm going to go and play in that. I haven't played in a limited PQ yet, so I'm excited to do that. And then I'll be driving up to Milwaukee, weather permitting, of course. Shout out to my wife who lets me do this and leave her for an entire weekend and with our 8-year-old. So yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep grinding. Looking forward to Vegas. It's going to be a blast.
Well, that's absolutely thrilling. Again, congrats on the fantastic run this weekend, and best of luck as you continue to push forward and try and lock in a spot in the top 32. Again, congrats on the run.
Thank you, and thank you guys for commentating and bringing these games to the community. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, and congrats again, John.
Yeah, bye-bye.
So there you go, John Morris, our sector qualifier champion. It has been such a fantastic weekend. You can catch another McClunky Gaming stream in the very near future. Valentine's Day weekend, they're going to be streaming a planetary qualifier. But it's just about time for us to wrap things up here. Tower, you have any final thoughts?
Well, I think that was a very cool event for Secrets of Power, showing some things that might have been a bit surprising. That final match between two very much non mid range decks in a purported mid range meta. I think it was a cool event for sure. I was excited to see that, and I'm excited to see what's new for Star Wars Unlimited in 2026 as we move into a lawless time in the game's first rotation.
Absolutely. So many exciting things to come. Thank you again for tuning in with us throughout this weekend and to everyone who made this event possible. May the force be with you. And until next time, take care.